Welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. In this podcast, we explore how nature, science, education, and culture can benefit all children and future generations. This is a show for educators, parents, mentors, and anyone interested in making the lives of our children, families, and communities better. So sit back, take a breath, and enjoy the show. And now for your host, Asher Cloran.
Hello and welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. I'm your host Asher and I'm here today with Nicki King from Nicki King Landscape Design. Nicki King is passionate about creating beautiful and sustainable landscapes for humans and wildlife alike. Gorgeous yet practical spaces that will enrich your life and well-being and support your local ecosystem. Right throughout Adelaide and surrounds, Nicki loves to create family areas where kids and adults can fall in love with nature again, as well as sanctuaries where you can switch off and relax from daily life. And so welcome to the show, Nicki.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really stoked to have you here. And I think creating gorgeous landscapes that are fun for children to be in and keep people connected to nature is such an important part of life and something that's gone overlooked really in the modern landscaping and architecture and the way we design cities and the way we design our suburbs. It's really been pushed off to the side quite a lot. So I think your work is really important and really underrated as a culture. So I'm interested to hear more from you about how this journey began and what got you into it and what inspires you to step more into this work.
Big journey. But yes, I totally agree with you. Actually, it has gone so far away from where it used to be and being at one with nature, basically, and understanding our environment. I've done many different jobs. I started off life as a florist, so I got to work with flowers and.
Okay.
And then I went on to do some retail work, as everybody does, I think. And I also was an artist, so I'd paint on big walls. And then I was a makeup artist, and then
Okay, sure.
to try things around.
Making everything look beautiful wherever you go.
Maybe that was it. That was trying to get to the thing that I really needed to be doing, which was this. So I ended up working for local councils in Adelaide, and from there I went to the education department, and I was working in children's centres, so working with young children and their families.
Yeah.
And there's a big push around the whole nature play explosion, and Project Wild thing had come out. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I haven't heard of that, no.
Check it out. Definitely Google it. Project Wild thing. It was it's a documentary movie that was made in England.
Was that the UK? Yeah, the UK doc. I did actually see that.
Yeah.
I was in Australia, mind, but yeah, I know that.
Yeah, really, really good. And that's sort of what made me just wake up and go, oh my God, we are raising a generation of children who really don't know anything about nature. And one of the things he says, and which I say in some of my stuff as well, is that if we don't teach our children to love and take care of nature, who's going to look after it when we're gone? So that just fueled me, and I was like on a mission. So I did a lot of nature play courses, and I think myself, like a lot of people, were looking at it going, this is how I grew up. This isn't anything new. This is sort of our parents kicked us out the door, and we'd go and run in the creek and build dams and, you know, out, and then came back for dinner. Like, this is just what we used to do. So it was about teaching parents to sort of be okay with exploring nature and learning to love it, and not being so much about we need to have this beautiful manicured garden so that everyone who comes over goes, oh wow, it's wonderful. Have something that we can like get together with kids and family and just say, look, let's go and explore this, and look at the wonder of, oh my gosh, we've got blue-banded bees in the garden, and
Yeah.
let's make a teepee out of these sticks, and all that imagination and joy and play that comes with all of these things. And yeah, we're just missing it. So I thought I could do conservation, but then I'd work for the government, and I realised that sometimes you hit me brick walls.
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
whole conservation side of things in landscapes around Australia is a pretty contentious sort of subject as well, with the use of, lots of poison and kind of a native only policy, when, hey, the cat's already out of the bag. There's already seeds from every other continent on this continent now, and I don't think we're going to remove them all anytime soon. So, for instance, the removal of willows on rivers, it's like, that's one of the best plants ever for creating stability of a riverbank, except we remove it because it's a noxious weed, apparently. So
Yes, exactly.
so I get why working for government could be balk at it a bit.
Absolutely. I think we need to look at everything on how, like, there's so many people out there with so many amazing ideas. How can we get all of those people together to pull those ideas and actually do stuff that's going to work?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, if I can't work for government, let's get into people's homes. And how can I do that? I'll become a landscape designer.
Amazing.
And it's just, honestly, it's the best thing I've ever done. It's such a rewarding career. It's one of those jobs which you're probably like me, Asha, where you could still be up at 2 o'clock in the morning and it doesn't seem like work. So, yeah.
Totally. I think we have a similar mission statement: connecting children to the magic of nature.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing I noticed is when I was working at the schools, and I'd be trying to get the kids to, play in amongst the trees, or get the get the twigs out there. Let's make teepees. Some people were really, really open to it, but if there was an accident, it was all risk averse and let's put it all away. And it's like, that's not what it's about. It's about getting dirty. And if we actually ended up getting it so that we could say to parents, your kids are going to come to preschool and they're going to get dirty, so don't put them in their best clothes. That's what it should be about. Getting them out there, playing in water, playing in mud, making mud pies, all that kind of really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Bringing back the sense of wonder. That's what I want.
Totally. And without a bit of risk and a bit of getting dirty, you probably won't ever find wonder, because everything's a little bit too sterile and controlled.
Absolutely. We're keeping our kids safe, but then what's happening to their mental health?
Yeah, sure.
So it's all of those things. A mum of 2 girls who are now, so I got my girls to adulthood, which is really, really good. But it can be really scary as a parent to say, okay, guys, you can go out and you can go and play. And we get bombarded from the media, all these risks, and there's bad people around every corner. And so I thought, well, I understand that fear, and I understand not wanting your kids to be out there. But what if we made those places actually in people's gardens, so they could get out there, they could experience playing in a pond, or creating a frog pond, or nesting boxes, or bee hotels, bug hotels, all those kinds of things, which is simple to do, and it creates that togetherness, working together. Kids aren't sitting on iPads and parents at their computer doing work. They're actually being together and creating that sense of wonder together and learning together, which is brilliant.
Totally. Yeah. And maybe you can jump into a little bit there for parents who haven't heard about nesting boxes, or bee houses, or stuff in the backyard, and why is that a good thing to have in the backyard for children? And maybe children of different age groups are needing different types of activities or stimulus, and how do you build them into landscapes?
Well, a very, very good thing to do with your kids, and there's so many resources available online and places that you can go and have a look at. One of my favourite spots is the Diggers Club in at the Botanical Gardens. They've got some really, really cool things in there. They've got examples of already built nesting boxes and bug hotels. And one of the reasons why we need to get these things out there and built is because we're cutting down trees at a ridiculously alarming rate. And yes, we might plant some new ones in, but what we're actually losing is the habitat for those animals. So we've got trees that could be, hundreds of years old with all of these great little nooks and hiding spots and nesting spots for all kinds of wildlife, and they're cutting them down and replacing them with something that hasn't got that. And it's going to take a long time for that to come. So we as helpers of the environment, that's a good one. That's what we're going to end up being. We make those and we teach children that this is something really important to do. And then we bring in those, that wildlife to our gardens. We can then say to our children, look, this is what we've got in our area and this is how we can create a safe space for them to come in. Things like wildlife corridors, because we're knocking down so many trees and the way we're doing housing at the moment, which I'm sure very well aware, we've got packed in houses with no backyards.
And they just come and scrape the whole topsoil, all the trees, cut it all back to a canvas, and then plant a few trees afterwards, maybe on the side of the road.
Absolutely, and small trees, because people don't want these in their gutters and all of that kind of stuff.
God forbid there's some fruit on the side of the road.
Oh my God. Absolutely. And there's some houses that I've gone to do designs, or I do what we call brainstorming sessions. So someone can call me up and I'll go out there for a couple of hours and we'll literally just throw ideas out there. And some of them, their backyards are like 3 meters by 5 meters, and that's a good size. That's their whole yard. Yep. And I think, what can we do with these spaces so that we can get those little elements in there? And there's things that we can do. What trees can we plant in a space that size that are going to, provide some of that? What plants can we put in there to bring in like the beneficial bugs and all of those things? So there's things that we can actually do. We just need to ask the questions and be curious and try and find, where all that info comes from. The other person that I'm going to recommend that people have a look at is Sophie Thompson and any of the Gardening Australia stuff.
Okay,
yeah, they are absolutely fantastic with all of the information they put out there. They're really big on sustainability and making sure that you're only using organic materials and no nasty pesticides or weed killers or anything like that.
Gardening Australia is good. They come up with some good features.
Absolutely, yeah. And they've got, if you Google on their website, they've actually got how do you make a bee hotel, how do you make like nesting boxes and even planting up your verge out the front of your house. Like if you don't have that space in your backyard, does your council allow you to plant up your verge? Let's put the verge out there so that people who can't have access to it, let's share. So,
And I think you'll agree with me is there's nothing more boring to a child to think about gardens through the lens of garden maintenance.
Oh because my gosh, yes.
That's where most people's sense of what a garden is, is a hedge that needs trimming, there's a lawn that needs mowing, and there's weeds that need killing, and that's gardening pretty much. And then if that's a parent's vision of gardening, then they're going to transfer that to the children, and then children just start to look at plants and stuff as something else to manage and kind of avoid and maybe, do on the weekends when you're getting some pocket money or something. That was literally my vision of gardens. Like I enjoyed nature and my parents gave me a lot of time in nature. So I had a connection to nature early on, but when it came to the garden around the home, it was lawns and really soils didn't click for me. Or plant life didn't click for me until later on, when I learned really about the life forms happening in the soil and the microbiome, and how there's, you know, almost infinite organisms beneath our feet that we're walking on every day, and they've got lives and they're doing things, and that really blew my mind.
It's insane, isn't it? Absolutely. You honestly touched on such an important point there. That is so, so true. All of that together, and this is what we should be teaching them. You know, the fact that that soil then allows this isn't wacky, this is science. It allows the trees then to basically communicate with each other, and that trees then provide that support to each other like a family would. And once you start looking into this stuff, it's just fascinating, and that's the curiosity we want to get back to our kids.
Yeah, it's totally mind-blowing, and how we bring that to life is through being passionate adults ourselves. Bring it to life for the children, rather, is by being passionate adults and working this into what we do. So I'd love to hear a story about how you've seen maybe a family or children, their lives change or their perspectives turn around, and through connecting to the landscape and through connecting to nature.
Well, I could tell you one that's very close to home.
Yeah.
I didn't always. This is me. I didn't know what was the best thing for our backyards. I've always loved gardens. I've always loved nature, and I'm the biggest softie when it comes to animals and plants and trees and all that kind of stuff. And I tried to teach my children that. When my eldest daughter was younger, she used to say to me, "Mum, my ideal backyard is living in town in a high-rise apartment with plastic plants on the balcony." And I was like, "This is my girl. No way, no way."
How old was she when she said that?
Oh, she would have been probably teenager, I would say.
Yeah, she was rebelling.
Well, yeah, and I think also it is what you touched on before about how a child sees the maintenance of a garden, how they see a garden.
Yeah.
It's work. Yep. And for her, she wanted to be out there exploring the world, you know, this, that, and the other. And
plastic plants don't need water.
And this is it. And she's like, "Oh, I'll kill everything I touch," and you know, like, and that's the thing. Alarm bells went off and said, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" And being able to then sort of talk her around. And she came to me a couple months ago now, and she just turned 25, and she said to me, "Mum, I want to retire in the hills with a massive garden." And it's like, oh yes,
done it.
Gets it. So her and her partner have got a house completely full of plants, and you know, that's their babies, and it's just, that's the kind of stuff we want to see. You know, even myself, when I now live it, breathe it, everything. The fact that, you know, I did make some of those mistakes when my children were younger, but we can still turn that around. And if we are passionate about it as adults, we set an example for everyone else. Hopefully they go, "Oh, I can do that."
Yeah.
There you go. Close to home one.
Yeah, it's really cool. So how did you get over your fears as a mother with your girls when they're working in landscapes, playing in nature, playing in landscapes? There's an element of risk.
Oh, yes.
And was it something that you came to intuitively? You were like, "Oh yeah, I'm already okay with a bit of risk"? Were you a parent that was like a bit cautious and then had to break that down as you learned about nature and landscapes and play? How did that go down for you?
That's a good one. I did have a lot of fear as a parent around safety of my girls in regards to them going out on their own. I think a lot of parents have that. And as a single parent,
like the stranger danger.
Yes. You know, like when we were kids, we would just leave the house and then come back, you know, when it was dinner. So I was very apprehensive about that. But what I ended up doing was making sure that I was out there with them doing things. So I would take them to the beach. We'd have the back of the car full of anything we could possibly do. And so we had the beach stuff, we had the playing in puddle stuff, we had everything already there. And we'd get in the car and I'd say to the girls, we're going for a drive. And if we say we'll go to the beach, then we live out in a Golden Grove way. We go to the beach and we go to Port Vincent, or we'd go to Goolwa or somewhere like that. And then we'd talk about everything that we'd see on the way there. And we would stop and then we would play and we would get in amongst it. So and one of the really big things I noticed when they were younger, if we'd say go for walks, we did this quite a lot along, some of the nature trails, so like the linear park trails and things like that. One time I was down in the creek playing with my girls. We were making a dam to stop the water, as you do.
Oh, yeah.
And there were so many families going past us, but they were all sticking to the concrete. Not one of them like veered off to play in the grass or in the creek or anything like that. And I'm like, this is so sad. Like, get in there, parents. They can play too. I think that's the thing. If you as a parent can go, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to get my gum boots on. I'm going to get messy. I'm going to get in amongst it with my kids. That half an hour even could be one of the most meaningful things in your child's life. That my parent got in there and look what they did. This was fun. Connect with nature and connect.
Totally.
Yeah.
Nature isn't this thing to tick off a list and we've done the walk on the concrete path through nature today, tick, family activity. It's a real opportunity to connect back to the deepest parts of ourselves and create meaningful moments that when people are asked what their most significant memories in life are, it always involves nature, almost always involves nature, or is in a natural location. The memories are rarely found inside buildings, which I find quite interesting. And it seems to be something to do with when we're in nature, there's so many textures, smells, sights, sounds, connecting to ancient parts of our DNA, which, for millions of years evolved in nature. It's interacting with our subconscious at a rate that a building or an internal environment can just never, ever mimic. So rich experience forms strong memories.
Absolutely. Amen. I agree with you completely. It's so true. Yeah. And I think the other thing with that as well is getting out and getting amongst it and feeling, there's so many reasons that have been proven to be good for you. We're living in such a stressful time now, especially since COVID. I think everyone's stress levels have gone through the roof. And even just spending some time sitting in some grass and just putting your phone away and just stopping and breathing and smelling all of the fresh air, and it's been shown to really, really help with your well-being and your mental health. So why wouldn't you?
Big time. Yeah, it's free. It's just outside.
Absolutely. Yeah. Completely.
So I think someone who's so passionate about landscapes and creating these places would look at the modern playground and just cringe. Most modern playgrounds, you'd be cringing. The big plastic, delivered, and they're so homogenized, so safe, so boring. Can you comment on the state of the modern playground and tell us where you'd like to see it end up?
It makes me sad. My partner, well, I won't say where he works, but he came home from work and he said they've just had a new playground put in at the building, and he's going, Nicki, you don't want to see it. And it's literally rubber matting flooring, which is the safe way, and this teeny tiny little wooden plastic playground, which it is not an inviting space for a kid. Like, it just looks hot and Yeah, not fun, no imagination needed. And anyone who's watched kids play on one of those playgrounds, they know that it doesn't hold their attention, it doesn't capture their imagination. They're up and down the slippery dip, and then they're like, okay, what else do I do?
Yeah.
You know, to have, there's some schools that have done some amazing work, and some landscape designers out there that have done some incredible work with some of the bigger school playgrounds, and some of the ones that are out. The Climbing Tree Consultancy, they honestly, he was one of my first inspirations, and he was probably the catalyst for me going, like, that's it, I quit. I'm becoming a
Yeah.
landscape designer, because the spaces that they create are amazing. You're having things that you've got a pile of sticks in a corner, you've got logs at different heights, so you're getting all of these motor skills. The children are exercising, they're using their imaginations, and a lot of the studies that have been done around this type of play show their ability to work together, to problem solve, all of these things, everything. It, you know, benefits from actually having these creative spaces, having a dry creek bed, and then maybe if they have to do something, and then next minute you've got some water that cascades down, and all of the different things that they can use their imagination for. They use every single muscle in their body. It's, I mean, really, it's a no-brainer for me. So when I see these supposedly risk-free playgrounds, I think, well, we've gone so far the other way. And if you actually look at some of the studies around that, I went to a conference once, and it was for I can't remember his name, I do apologize, but he'd actually done a study about the risks of these so-called safe playgrounds. It's a brilliant read. It really, really.
Yeah, great.
And if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Please. Yeah.
And just the stuff that he noticed, like the fact that the heat from these rubber matting is so much hotter. The heat off of some of this plastic, you're getting kids with burns.
Mm.
You know, all of these kinds of things. And yes, they might scrape a knee if they fall over on the bark, but they'll do that in the garden. They'll do, you know, things like that. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, I don't understand it.
Yeah, the world's sort of backwards in a lot of ways, and I think COVID revealed that okay, here's a big thing that's, you know, out of risk. There's a certain category of people that are highly at risk. Children aren't that. Children aren't that. But we shut down playgrounds and we locked them inside regardless, and did that sort of thing, which steals vital development years. So we're avoiding certain risks that society, the government says is super risky, and we're just trading them for all of these other little risks that you know, like you say, like that the heat coming off these things is too much, and there's probably all these chemicals outgassing out of the plastics, and they're not climbing, and they're not balancing, and they're not doing all of these things that are so vital to a child to develop a healthy nervous system and body. Like, if a child doesn't develop the sense of balance, the sense of being able to develop the muscles in the back from climbing or hanging or swinging, then what's going to happen to them as they age? Well, their joints aren't going to work well, their posture's going to be bad, their core's going to be, you know, not solid, and probably all of these developmental issues that, and when you go down the track and you ask the physio or the chiro or whoever your doctors sent you to with your problems, they're going to say, oh, we don't know the reason, but here's, you know, here's some drugs, or here's a few exercises, and go on your way. And yeah, so our culture is not good at looking at root causes of things, but if we observe childhood happening in the moment, we can see a lot of root causes going down. So I think your work really does sidestep a lot of things, and yeah, I'd love to see more of these nature playgrounds being the standard and the normal, just as I'm sure that you would.
Absolutely.
And I hope that, yeah, in the show notes for this, I can include some things like that essay you wrote on the the dangers of modern playgrounds, which are so-called safe, or we'll include some photos of what some of these nature-based playgrounds look like, because they are really inspirational. As soon as people see them, they're like, yeah, it just makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. There's some other landscapers that are doing some incredible work bringing back habitat, and if people want to be able to get more information on this, or actually find a landscape designer or a construction company who can help them create stuff like this in their yard, you can find or contact me. I can either do it, or I can put you onto someone who can be suited for exactly what you're after. But there's people out there doing it. We just need to keep promoting them, I think.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I was saying to Nicki before the show that I see every nature creator, especially those working in the realm of children and education in Australia, as part of a vital network of people that is, ushering in a better future for future generations. And we all need to collaborate and network and, create opportunities to have people like yourself actually building our landscapes and our homes. And there are a lot of people around doing great work. So, it's all, thank you for offering, to be a point of contact for people in the network to find people in these landscaping realms, because that's really important.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I love, if there's someone out there who is doing a fantastic job or doing something different than me, like let's let them be known, because
Right.
they all need to be celebrated.
Yeah, nature cooperates, doesn't compete, does it?
Look at that. I love that. Can I steal that?
Absolutely, absolutely. For sure.
That's brilliant. That's really, really good. Yes.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Life Rocks is not just a podcast. It is an education foundation centered around connecting children to the magic of nature through earth sciences. As a self-funded foundation and startup, we are constantly seeking support so that we can continue our great work. So if you feel called to donate to Life Rocks, please head down to the show notes and find the relevant donation link. We accept regular money as well as cryptocurrencies. We greatly appreciate you, our Life Rocks community. Now, back to the show.
So one of the other things that I didn't mention, and I don't know if I've got time to sort of squeeze a little.
You got plenty of time, yeah.
Oh, cool. One of the things, and we're talking about bug hotels and the like before.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned briefly that I've got some clients who come to me and go, I do not want any bees in my garden. I don't want any.
Right, yeah, because of their sting, and that's painful.
Oh, absolutely. Or if they're having a pool, they're like, I don't want anything that's going to bring the bees in. But actually, the bees like the water more than anything else. So you're going to have them.
Yeah.
But
I've been stung by a bee on the side of the pool. I'll remember it my whole life. It was at my grandma's place.
Yeah.
And I was about 3, and I had a big sook about it, and then I realised it's not so bad.
See, there you go. And that's the thing. That like, if a bee's gonna sting you, it's gonna sting you. Like you can't stop them by not having.
You'll live.
That's it. Unless you have an allergy and then get to a hospital. So
That's true.
but getting these children to look at the things in nature. Like my youngest daughter, she just inspires me, and she's still like, she's 21 now, and she'll still see say a bug stuck somewhere, and she'll go and pick it up and save it, and things like that, creating that wonder and that inquiry around these gorgeous creatures who we need. It does fill me full of fear when I hear people saying, I've completely like bug bombed my shed, or sprayed with all these ridiculous pesticides, and I just think you're going to kill everything, and then the bad stuff's going to come back, so you've got none of its natural predators there to sort of take them out. So I used to be one of those people. Every 6 months I'll do the spray protection, and then I stopped and thought, why have I just got redbacks? Like, where's all the other like bugs?
Right.
So then I stopped, and I've noticed I've got so many other beneficial bugs that are coming in, and like the daddy longlegs, that natural predator. So
Yeah.
it all works itself out. Nature has a way of balancing itself out. So by
It's true.
encouraging these things into the garden, you're only helping yourself, and you're providing a food source for other animals. So the flow on is just amazing.
Yeah. And you're developing a sense of compassion and care in your children as well. In
Yeah.
my book, Connecting Children to Nature, I've got a whole little section on bug phobic parents, and to resolve their anxiety with the natural world being important for their children to feel comfortable around bugs and happy outdoors. So,
That's brilliant. So what's some of the things you recommend for that then?
well, just even the recognition that it's an out of alignment belief system that's based upon their own fear or trauma, and that it's not worthy of passing on to other generations. So I think often just the recognition that something is out of whack. It's a choice that we've made and an internalized belief system, and that's enough to really to change it, to shift it, move it on, to see it as not valuable anymore to anyone.
Yes, and that's exactly what we have to be doing, isn't it? It's not saying that what someone is thinking, like, oh well, you're wrong, you're bad. It's
No.
You don't know any different. You don't know any different, and it's about educating people to go, oh, well, you think that way now, but have you thought of this, 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 and this?
Yeah.
So they can make those, informed decisions. And light bulbs usually go off and go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize what I was doing.
Yeah, and that, like you mentioned, how you discovered the interconnected web of different characters in the house of, daddy longlegs are regulating the redbacks, and
I see what you did there, interconnected web. That's good.
yeah. Yeah, low key spider jokes.
But it is really good. And when you hear, about the other animals that, again, if you're spraying all of this stuff, and I touched on it before, that's their food source. So you're then poisoning these other animals, which is then another food source for another animal, and then it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's like, this craziness needs to stop.
I worked in landscaping from the age of 20 through to about 28, 29, when I had my own business for 6 years, and I became ultimately a chemical-free business. I just tell clients I'm not spraying, and if you want other people to spray, then you can, get them in for that.
Yes!
But yeah, it was a turning point for me of like, I did work initially in gardens where it was, have you heard of Bowral in New South Wales?
Yes, I used to live near there.
Right. Yeah, so it's a big garden mecca, and it's pretty much the style of gardens is Little England. Let's repeat what happened in our English European style gardens: buxus hedges, manicured lawns, rose archways, all the things that are really high maintenance and hard to grow in an Australian climate. That's what they like. So
yes,
poison intensive, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it anymore. Of like, so we're spraying a growth retardant on this entire lawn so that it grows slower, and it's doing genetic damage to the plant. That's how it retards the growth, and this doesn't affect frogs, bees, birds, worms. No, they're all fine. Oh, okay. No sense. Just doesn't, like, we couldn't compute after a while.
absolutely. And it's that thing. The more you learn about a subject, the more you can just understand that, what it is that we're doing and the damage that we're doing, and you just think, why? What's the purpose? So we can be more convenienced and. It is mind blowing, and all of those styles of gardens that you're talking about. And I know I used to drive through Barrel quite often, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And we still have people here who are wanting that kind of garden.
Adelaide is an even harder climate to do it in.
I know. And when people go, I want a low maintenance garden, but I like lush green clipped hedges. And I'm like, okay. And it's teaching to love natives. And, I do sneak a lot of native plants in when they don't realise. So, but my thing is that I can teach people to, I don't know if you've seen any of my Instagram posts or anything, and I'm now doing a thing where I'm putting in native plants so that people can see what is a really good alternative to a Buxus hedge or different plants. So we've got so many incredibly gorgeous native species in Australia. We are so very, very lucky with what we have, and even just planting a few of those in your garden is going to make a massive difference to your local ecosystem. So it's, why wouldn't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And kids love to learn about birds and different animals coming in. It's really exciting to create that.
Absolutely. Have you seen the Backyards for Wildlife website?
No.
Jeff, definitely check that.
We're going to have lots of great links in this podcast for people to pop up.
It is really, really good. It's got so many little tips and tricks and things that you can do with your kids, and things that are really, really easy to do. And it talks about why you should do them, and it's stuff that just anybody could do. You don't have to be an expert. You can just if you've got a log that has fallen off a tree, keep it in your garden. You might have a spot for lizards or bugs or all those things. So it's a great website. Definitely check it out.
Amazing. And each of us as adults, can look back into fond aspects of our childhood and see these times that we had, connection to nature, and where we had lots of fun. And I think back to my days at Steiner in a couple of instances where they let the kids get pretty wild. Like it was a bit of a hands-off type of teaching style. And one of the key features of the landscape at our school was this giant earth-rammed lizard on the ground. So it was about 15 meters long, 5 meters wide, made out of earth, and it just had grass growing on it. But it was a big lizard, and it had big sleepers drilled up the spine of the lizard as like stepping posts.
Cool.
And we used to play wrestling on the lizard, and it was last person left on the lizard was the game.
That's awesome. I love it.
And it's just, a simple thing, but it created so much fun, and it was it left a lot to the imagination,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely. And just, that's the thing, teaching people that some of these really, really simple things can really create such a difference in your space and for your family as well. So, that simple thing like garden edging, if you have some different height logs, the kids use them as steppers, like you were saying, but it also creates a gorgeous edge for your garden and your lawn, and it can double as a seat. So, there's little clever ways that you can bring elements in. It doesn't have to look like a straight nature playground. You have a beautiful garden, but you can incorporate some of those elements in it as well. So
And what have you got on for the next year, and have you got any cool projects in the pipeline that you're working on at the moment?
Yes.
I bet you do.
So COVID has certainly made our industry exceptionally busy, because people aren't traveling. Well, they weren't traveling, and they were stuck at home looking at their gardens going, okay, I need to do something about this. So a lot of us in our industry have been flat out, which we're really lucky. That's great. Very lucky. So I've been doing a lot of really, really cool gardens. I've been to Kangaroo Island, and I've done a great garden over there with Jessie from River Landscapes, who does some really good work. And I've got some other really good ones, like up in Murray Bridge at the moment. I'm doing one where they look over some wetlands. So they want to incorporate that same kind of feel into their home, and create a swimming pool area, which is basically a mirror of what the wetlands are going to be. So that's going to be a really, really nice job to do. I do also currently at the moment, I'm doing a lot of residential, like retirement villages.
Yeah.
So for that's sort of the opposite end of the spectrum. In those, we're bringing in a lot of horticulture therapy spaces as well. So creating spots for the people to get their senses going. And because when I first went into these spaces, they're very much a little bit of garden in front of the units, and then no places for them to interact, or your typical garden along the edges and your lawn in the middle. So mixing up the spaces as much as I can and creating lots of little areas for the residents there. So that one I'm really loving as well. That's really good. That's quite a few little spaces.
Awesome. It sounds like you got a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
And I think there is this rebound effect occurring after COVID, where people have realized that there's some things that are important in life, and one of them is nature, family, looking after yourself. So, anyone who's working in the nature connection space is feeling that rebound and that rebound attention on businesses like us. And we've seen it in the early childhood sector, as the Australian government's pumped more money into early childhood than ever before.
Yeah.
I hope to see a lot of that go into the landscapes and the gardens, rather than the iPads and the technology side of things, which seems to be always creeping up on things. So well, it's been awesome to chat to you today, and
it has been great.
And on our podcast, I always ask people, if they had one wish for our future generations, what is the most powerful change that we can make as a culture to improve the lives of children and generations to come? And before the show, you said to me to lead by example, to show our future generations that nature and the planet are something to be loved and to care for. The most important things in life are not driven by money, and that you could go on for hours and hours about that.
Absolutely.
Did you want to expand on that any more for us and the audience today?
I think as adults, it's our responsibility to teach these coming generations that there is hope for our future, and that they are the hope for our future. And as older adults, I'm much older than you, I think, and we have made mistakes. There have been mistakes, but we can learn from what we've done, and teaching these up and coming generations that they need to just let go, love what they see, love everything about the natural world around them, and give them that sense of wonder. Because without that, they're not going to be inquisitive and want to learn about things. And that's the best way we can get them to love our world that we're on. So, yeah.
Beautifully said. Yeah, that's so true. And it's true, because without wonder, without awe, without excitement, which builds passion and connection, you don't get care or empathy.
Yeah.
You get avoidancy, and you get blocking it out because it's too hard, and there's no tools there to deal with. They've also done studies to show that when we enforce the awareness of the disruption of environments and faraway habitat problems on children that are too young, it also creates anxiety and pressures on young children to feel they're like, oh no, I've got to deal with the problems of the environment. And that's, if we can cultivate that sense of awe and passion and aliveness with nature, which your landscapes do naturally. A landscape speaks louder than all the words that we could say about protecting the environment.
Yeah.
They're going to grow up going, hey, I want to protect this because it's given me so much and I feel so good about it, not because my teacher said that rainforests are getting cut down and that means that I'm not going to have air to breathe or something. It's like, that's a heady concept, as where if you're living in a beautiful landscape, it's not in the head anymore.
Absolutely. We have to give them hope, not this dread. We're going to have, we have already got a generation of young adults who are saying, I don't know if I want kids because I don't want to bring them into this world that we've got. And for me, that's absolutely terrifying because I say to my girls, but what if that child is the one person who's going to come up with that invention that's going to, change something significant for our environment? Like, we need to keep that sense of hope and wonder alive. And I've got this little quote that sits above my desk here, and it says, the world isn't in trouble because there are too many sensitive people. So I think we need to encourage, sensitivity and love and empathy and compassion are things that should be cherished and thought of, instead of being, oh, they're so tough, they're so hard. Well, that's why we're in the mess room. I think we should have that, encourage that sensitivity among our kids, because then they learn to love everything that we've got.
100%. Yeah, that's another really good point. Something I write about in my book as well is that children with special needs, especially the children on the spectrum, are not these problem children. They're actually signaling to our society where we need to adjust.
Oh, my goodness.
I call them the canary in the coal mine, which is, the canaries were taken into the coal mines with miners because they were more sensitive, so that if a gas leaked in the underground mining situation, the canary would die first, so the miners would know they've got about an hour before they're dead so they can get out of the mine. So, I mean, it's a bit of a far cry away from autistic spectrum disordered children, but they are the canary in the coal mine for our society. Of like, if they're sensitive to certain chemicals, or they don't respond well to an environment, or they're not learning, then what's that saying about the way that we're teaching, or our environments, or the chemicals that we're using?
Absolutely. My youngest daughter has autism, the 21-year-old. So I always say to her, you don't have special needs, you have a superpower. She can see things that other people sort of are not sensitive to. So you completely agree with that comment. Perfect.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, so many people who have had that hypersensitivity in certain areas have developed amazing inventions or come up with certain things because they are out of the box, because they are literally their biology for some reason is forcing them into thinking about things at a deeper level, coming up with solutions that the rest of the culture can't conceive of because they're not experiencing that depth of the world.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. I have to get a copy of his book.
I'll be sending you one for sure.
Oh, yay. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. That's great. That's really good. I could talk to you about all this stuff for hours, Asher.
Yeah, well, I'd love you to come back on at certain times, and I think we've covered a lot of ground today for people. So, yeah, I'm stoked to have had you on, and I'm great. I'm happy to have connected to another person in Australia, especially someone in your field doing stuff with landscapes. And I'm also excited to come and see some of your work one day as I travel around the place, and maybe we can do this podcast in person next time.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be fantastic. Look forward.
Maybe in one of your gardens even. We'll set it up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. Amazing.
Thanks so much, Asher.
Anything else you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Oh, I think I've got it all out.
Awesome. That's perfect. Well, thank you once again, Nicki.
No worries. Thanks so much, Asher. It's been great.
Awesome. And thank you, Life Rocks listeners, for listening to today's podcast. Anything mentioned in the show is going to be in the notes below, so lots there for you to explore. And once again, everybody, Life Rocks.
Thank you so much for listening to the Life Rocks podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then leave us a review. We'll be back soon with more inspiring content, and in the meantime, remember, life rocks.